For Stripe to charge a customer using our app, that customer needs to be registered with our Stripe account as a customer. In our dashboard, I have a number of customers that have been created during testing. You can see the information that is stored for these customers. I'll just grab this one here. So you can see we have customer IDs, and this is actually what we're going to be trying to get in this lesson. Then you have when it was created, emails, customer balance, cards, bank accounts, and any payments that they've made, along with a bunch of other information. So how do we create these Stripe customers? Stripe recommends that you create the Stripe customer at the same time you add the user data to your own database. In our case, when we register a new user and create its user document in Firestore. And it's okay if you don't also add any payment information at this time. That's perfectly fine. So what we can do is create a cloud function that is triggered when a new document is added to the user's collection. And just as a refresher, here is a list of the events that can trigger cloud functions. We have Cloud Firestore triggers, real-time database triggers, remote config triggers, authentication triggers, Google Analytics, Crashlytics, Cloud Storage, Cloud Pub Sub, and HTTP triggers. So let's write from scratch a new cloud function that will be triggered when we add a new user document to our users collection. But first, we are going to need to add a few constants and initialize Stripe here in our project. We are going to need the admin tools so we can read and write to our Firestore database. And we do that by coming up here where we have const functions, and just below that we'll say const admin is equal to require, and we're going to say Firebase dash admin, and that should actually be inside single quotes, and then semicolon. Very good, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this comment. We'll leave the this example function just for us to reference later if we need to, and then we need to initialize admin here. So I'm going to say admin dot initialize app, open close parentheses, and semicolon. And now we're going to need to initialize Stripe here. But first we need to add it as a dependency. Okay, so again, going back to CocoaPods, it would be like adding Stripe as the CocoaPod to our Xcode project. Okay, so the way that we add Stripe as a dependency here with npm, the node package manager, we go back to our terminal, and I'm going to do pwd to make sure I'm still in my Artable Cloud Functions directory. Then I'm going to say ls to list the folders and documents in that directory, and I want to cd to the functions folder. So I'm going to say cd functions. I'm going to change the directory to the functions folder, and then we're going to add Stripe. And the way to do that is saying npm install stripe -- save. Okay, npm install stripe -- save. All right, perfect. So that has been added. Now if we come back to our package.json file, we should see Stripe now here as a dependency. Very good. All right, so back in our index.js file, we need to initialize Stripe. Now, I'm going to give you this challenge. Go find in the Stripe documentation yourself, or Stack Overflow, or wherever, how to initialize Stripe in the Node.js environment. Go give that a shot. Hint, you are going to need something from your Stripe dashboard as well. So, did you figure it out? If not, let's do it together. I'm going to pretend I haven't done this before and just start with some Google searches to kind of demonstrate how you might figure out how to do this. So I'm going to say Stripe initialize Node.js iOS maybe. And let's see what we have here. We see standard iOS integration. That looks promising. Quick start. So I'm going to come here, and it says prepare your API. Okay. Let's see what we have here. iOS, PodStripe. Okay, so this is showing how to get our Xcode project up and going. Okay, so I'm not seeing it right here. Let's check out this example backend. So earlier I said that I like Stripe because they have some good example documents. So this is an example backend. Looks like it is written in Ruby though, but this is what we're kind of looking for right here is initializing Stripe. Our way is a little bit different though. Let's see what else we have here. Let's try here. Set up the iOS SDK. Here we go. This is what we need. Step 2, set up the connection token endpoint. We need this right here. var stripe is equal to require stripe and then your secret key, okay? Since we are in developer test mode, this is our secret test key right here, okay? So this is exactly what we need. So I'm going to copy this, come back to Visual Studio Code and paste that. I'm going to change it to const though. Const stripe is equal to require stripe and then the secret test key. So right now we have the secret key in plain text right here in our index.js file. This would work fine, but if we were to accidentally check this into a public repo or someone hacked your GitHub account, they would be able to get it. And this is how you will see a lot of other tutorials teach this, but the better way is to add it as an environment configuration variable. This keeps the sensitive keys out of plain text and out of the GitHub repo. The only downside to this is if you have a coworker or someone who is authorized to pull the repo from GitHub, they're going to have access to the secret keys and add them as environment configuration variables on their own machine. So to do this, open a new tab in a browser and search for Firebase function environment configuration. And right here's what we want, environment configuration Firebase. Okay, so it says up here, often you'll need additional configuration for your functions, such as third-party API keys or tunable settings. The Firebase SDK for Cloud Function offers built-in environment configuration to make it easy to store and retrieve this type of data for your project. All right, so this is how we set environment configuration data. We use Firebase functions config set, and then we provide the name of the service. In this case, we're going to say stripe.secret key is equal to, and then we set the string. Okay, this all needs to be lowercase. All right, so I'm going to open up terminal. So I'm going to move this up and follow this right here. We're going to say Firebase functions config set, and then we're going to provide the name of the service. So I'm going to say stripe.secret test. Oh, sorry, I said only lowercase, secret underscore test underscore key equals, and then we need to paste our secret keys. I'm going to open up Visual Studio, grab our secret key here, and paste that, and then say enter. And that takes just a second to get added. And then it says, please deploy your functions for the change to take effect. And if you want to view your environment variables, what you can do right here is functions config get. So we say Firebase functions config get. And then we'll see our environment variables right here, stripe, and then the secret test key, and then the key. And you can add as many of these as you want. You can have other services, as it were. So for instance, if you're working with, I don't know, NodeMailer or Google Maps, then you could have different ones like this. You could have Stripe, and then you could have Maps, and then its key, etc. All right, so we have our secret test key here in our environment configuration, which means that now we can pull it out of our plain text here. And then the way to access these environment variables is just like this. We have, we say functions.config, and then the name of the service and then the key. So I'm gonna say back in Visual Studio, functions, whoopsie, functions.config.stripe. What do we call it? Secret test key. Secret test key. Very good. And now if your account gets hacked or something happens to your repo, somebody won't be able to get hold of your secret key. All right, now that we have Stripe initialized and our admin tools, let's write our cloud function. We start cloud functions with exports, just like we saw in our example one. So I'm going to say exports dot, and then we give it a name. I'm going to call this create Stripe customer. That is equal to functions. And then we provide the type of trigger. We are going to do firestore.document. And if you hover over this, it says that select the Firestore document to listen to for events. Full data path, full database path to listen to. This includes the name of the collection that the document is part of. For example, if the collection is named users and the document is named Ada, then the path is users/Ada. We are going to be listening for any new document. So we're going to use a wildcard here. So we say users/ and then curly brace user ID. So that's where we're going to be listening to. Then we say dot on create, and you can see here that we have on create, on delete, on update, and on write. Okay, so on create responds only to new document creations, on delete responds only to document deletions, update only updates, and on write responds to any of those three. Now, like I've said, we are going to be listening for new document creations, so we are going with on create. And then we say open, close parentheses, then I'm going to do enter, and then I'm going to say async. And we'll talk a little bit more about async in a little bit, but that just lets us do some cool things with asynchronous requests. Now, as part of .onCreate, we get back a snapshot document and context. Okay, so this is what we are getting back as a result of onCreate being triggered. We get the snap, which is a document snapshot like we've been using in Xcode, and contains the data for the new document being added. The context is the context in which an event occurred. An event context describes the time an event occurred, a unique identifier of the event, the resource on which the event occurred, if applicable, authorization of the request that triggered the event, if applicable, and available. Okay, so we are getting the snap and the context. And then I'm going to say equal arrow. So this is the arrow, and I'm going to do open, close, curly brace. And I'm going to grab this closing parenthesis we had down here and just move it right up there and close all of that off with a semicolon. Okay, so we have our cloud function skeleton. We know it's going to run when we add a new user. We know we're going to have the document snapshot and the context. So what do we want it to do? We need to add a new Stripe customer. So let's go take a look at the Stripe documentation. I'm going to open up a new browser here. I'm just going to say Stripe API docs. And this is what we want right here, the Stripe API reference. And if you continue working with Stripe, this will be your Bible. Just about everything you can do with Stripe is documented right here. Got authentication, we got balances, charges, customers, bank accounts, cards, sources, billing, connect, fraud. There's so much information in here. And it's all very well organized and very well documented. They actually just recently updated this entire look, and I'm really digging it. We have dark mode and light mode, and they've improved how the code snippets display over here on the right side, so that's really nice. But anyways, so we're going to be looking at customers here. Okay. So in Stripe, a customer object allows you to perform recurring charges, track multiple charges that are associated with the same customer, And the API allows us to create, delete, and update those customers, as well as retrieve individual customers and a list of all the customers for our Stripe account. Then down here has the customer object and shows all of the properties of a Stripe customer object and gives a description of each of the properties. And what we want is the next section down, create a customer. And it shows exactly how to create a customer. We simply use the Stripe API and we say stripe.customers.create. And this example is creating it using a description and a source. We are going to be creating our Stripe customers with just the email that we retrieve from the new document being added to the user's collection. All right, so take a look through this documentation for the customer object, familiarize yourself with its properties and the code there to create it. And we're going to finish up this lesson right here. And in the next lesson, we are going to go back into Visual Studio Code and fill out the rest of our Create Stripe Customer Cloud function. Hope you're excited for that. I will see you there.